So the first half is going to kind of just be going through like tips on how to do inquiry, and I'm going to model some things you can do through Zoom. And then the second half will just be kind of going through some of those really cool Zoom features, if you're unfamiliar with them, that can be helpful. So one thing, let me pull up that screen, that you can do is you can share screens. So at the bottom, you should see a green share box, and then you can pull up different screens, and the host can pull up any screen they like, but another thing that's really cool is that the host can see other people's screens and select them. And the participants can also share their screens if the host lets them. And we'll have all those features enabled for you when you get your Zoom link. So right now you should be able to see the PowerPoint. And when you are hosting your session, you can toggle back between screens. So you have access to any screen you like. You can use the internet, you can use a PowerPoint, you can show things on your desktop. There's also a whiteboard feature, and I'll show you the whiteboard feature in just a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna get started with showing the PowerPoint. So if you have the PowerPoint on your own personal one, you don't have to pull it up yet. I'll tell you when I want you to pull it up. All right, and I'm also going to keep the chat feature open. That's another really cool thing about Zoom, is that there is the chat box. And with the chat box, that way you can have students chime in at any point, and they can ask questions, and then you can sort of answer their questions as they ask. Or you can always just unmute your microphone. So if you have a question, you can always unmute your microphone, and that will be fine. Okay, so let me pull up that screen, and we'll make sure that we're sharing it. All right, are we good? Everyone can see that? All right, so now the first thing is visuals. So if you want to teach inquiry, you need to have visuals, visuals. And that's going to be true whether you're teaching in person or whether you're teaching online. But even more so online, because you're not going to necessarily have access to manipulatives for the students to be working with. So here would be some examples of visuals. So I'm actually going to have you do these activities so we can model how it works. And so on here, you should see a screen that this is from a sink and float lesson that we do with our step 1 students. And normally I would have the students, I would give them cards, and they would sort of move the cards around with these different images. But since I can't give them those manipulatives, I actually just gave them where the cards would go when they're done. So here are the cards, and here's sort of, this represents a water line, and these are all objects that floated, and these are all objects that sank. And what I want you to do right now is I'm going to give you just a minute to look at these this image, and there's sort of 2 questions on the side. What do all the objects that floated have in common, and what do all the objects that sink have in common? And what I want you to do is I want you in the text box to type the answers to those questions. So in the text box, type the answers to what do all the objects that float have in common, and what do all the objects that sink have in common? Okay, so I see Mary responded, and she said the objects don't look to be big objects. So we're working with small objects here. The biggest object would probably be that baseball. I see Eliezer has responded. Does it have to do with matter? Absolutely, it has to do with matter. So you notice that the word matter is here. Yes, look at that matter. That is a big clue. Let's see if you can figure it out. What do all the objects that floated have in common? What do all the ones that sank have in common? Matter is going to be really important for this.
What like matter says, it takes up space, right?
Ah, yes. So I think that was Jesus who was just talking. And yes, it does have to do with the space. All right. So, oh, I see Jesus is saying that the objects that float that have matter that is spread apart. So what I'm going to do right now is, Jesus, I want you to unmute your microphone and tell us what you mean by that.
All right. Well, the ones on top, the little dots, they're spread much further apart than the ones in the bottom.
Very good. Yes, the ones on the bottom are very close together. The matter is very close together, and the ones on the top is very spread apart. So if you had to make a prediction, if you had to guess, what would you say about objects that float? What would be true about their matter? So Jesus, I'm going to have you pause your microphone, and instead I'm going to call on somebody. I'm going to call on Alondra. Alondra, can you unmute your microphone and tell us what do you think is true about if an object floats, what do you think is going to be true about their matter?
That they're lighter.
So are they necessarily lighter? Because we have a baseball that's pretty heavy, that floated, and we have a cube and that was pretty light and that sunk. So is it about light? Give me something else. It's not necessarily about how light it is. Give me something else. It's true about their matter.
How about the density?
Yes, it does have to do with density. And I'm going to call on somebody to expand upon that. So I want Brenda Rios. I want you to unmute your microphone and expand on that. Tell me about the density. What's going on here?
I think maybe that they have less matter.
So let's count the number of dots. How many dots are here?
3. They all have 3.
Yeah, they all have 3. So it may not be the amount of matter because every single one has 3 dots. So it's got to be something else. Let me see if I'm going to have Brenda, you can mute your microphone now. I'm going to call on Mary. Mary, so it's not the amount of matter because they all have 3 dots. It's not whether they're light or heavy. It does have to do with density. It does have to do with matter. What do you think it might be, Mary?
Because the atoms are more spread out, there's more space, and therefore making it less dense, and that's why they're floating.
Perfect. And Leo just made a comment about volume, and that is absolutely right. It's not just volume, it's not just mass, it's both. It's that density. We have whether that it's spread out over, the mass is spread out over a large volume or spread or very clustered together in a tight volume. So what I want to do there is I want to pause looking at this, and I want to talk about some of the features that I used. The first question that I have is that who gave away the answers? The answer is about density. The answer is about how it has to do with the matter being spread apart or being close together. Was that me or was that the students? And you can either type your answer or answer with the microphone.
The students.
It was the students, absolutely. You did, yes, smiley face. So absolutely, it was the students who did it. And what did I utilize? I want you to think, and I want you to type in the chat box, what were some of the strategies that I utilized to get the students to answer those questions?
Inquiry.
Okay, I want you to expand upon that a little bit more. What were some specific strategies that I used?
Well, you called out students, and
Very
then
good.
I felt something, and you didn't do it right. I'm sorry, you didn't do it exactly like that, but I just felt it like you were like, what was it called when you jumped from one student and then you went back to that student? I just felt it like that, but I know it wasn't like that. Good.
Okay, so jumping between students or going
Yeah.
back to students. And I'm
Yeah.
seeing some great comments in the comment box. I'm seeing probing questions. I'm seeing pictures. Yes, visuals, visuals, visuals. And I'm seeing calling out names. I'm seeing images. I'm seeing follow-up questions. And I'm seeing the chat box. So all of those strategies are going to be available to you. You can show the images. You can ask questions. You can ask follow-up questions. You can have people unmute their microphones and speak. And you can also use the chat box feature. And one cool thing about the chat box feature is that you can ask a question to everyone, but you can also allow the students to answer to the whole group, which you're doing right now, but you can also have them answer just to you privately, just to the teacher. So that way, if you don't want them to give away an answer to the rest of the class, like let's say they're making the predictions and you only want them to give their predictions to you, you can have them do a private chat versus a group chat. So those are some features that we have. So that's my first example. Now, my second example is this was one picture that I used, but sometimes when you're working with your students, they're going to get stuck and one picture isn't going to be enough. So you might need 2 pictures. So that's where this next example comes in. So in here, I have to use 2 pictures to get these answers. And you may need to use 3 or you may need to use 4. Where did these pictures come from? They came from Google. So this picture, Mr. Sears created it. So you can create your own images, but you can also use Google. You have Google at your disposal. So you can pick up as many pictures as you need. And if things aren't going well during the lesson and the students are stuck, you can go to Google and just share your Google screen right there and then with the students. So I wanted to show an example of why here I might need 2 images and why you might need 2 images as well, or 3 or 4. So the question I'm asking here, which is a science lesson, this is one on DNA, is which bases bond together and why? So I want everyone to look at just the first picture. I wouldn't even show this second picture yet. This one, just imagine it's not here, ignore it. Just look at this picture right here. I'm gonna give everyone a minute. And again, in the chat feature, I want you to type which bases bond together. Once you figure it out, type it into the chat box. Okay, so I see Alondra is saying C bonds to G. C standing for cysteine, G standing for guanine. Okay, let's see if anyone else has something else. Vanessa is saying that A bonds to T, A standing for adenine and T standing for thymine. Again, I'm not telling you that, you're telling me it from the image. You're looking at the image and you're seeing that. I have a question for the group. You can answer either through the chat box or you can unmute your microphone. Does A always bond to T? Does adenine always bond to thymine? Look at this image. Is there ever an exception? Is there ever a time that adenine does not bond to thymine? That it bonds to cytosine, that it bonds to guanine? Is there ever a time that that happens? Okay, I'm saying no. I'm saying that that does not happen. What about cytosine? Is there ever a time that cytosine does not bond to guanine? That it bonds to thymine or adenine? So that answers the which basis. That answers the first part of my question. But this picture alone really isn't going to answer the second half of the question, which is why. For the why, I need another image. So I want you to keep that in mind when you're designing your lessons. One image may not be enough. You might need a second one. This image right here will give you the why. And I want you to figure it out using the chat feature, but this time I want you to do a private chat. So I want you to select the blue box under the chat feature, and I want you to select Elizabeth Goldberg. So now it's just going to show up to me. It's not going to show up to the group. And we're going to see if you can figure out, look at this image, what's going on. Why? See if you can answer the why. Why does adenine always bond to thymine? Why does it never bond to guanine? Why does it never bond to cytosine? Let's see who can figure it out. When you think you got it, type it into the chat box as a private chat, so only I can see it. And that way you don't have to worry about your classmates, you know, seeing your answer if you're unsure. Or that way you're not worried about the classmates giving away the answer if you want to give everyone time to think about it independently. So let's see who can figure it out. I'm getting some responses. I'm getting one from Eliezer, I'm getting one from Vanessa, but only I can see them. You can't see them. So that, you know, is how the private chat feature works. Okay, based off the number of responses I have, I'm seeing some questions. So I'm going to pose those questions to the group, and I'm going to give you a little bit of hints. So people are asking, does it have to do with the size of the ends? Does it have to do with the structure? Yes, it absolutely does. So I want you to look at the structure, and I want you particularly to look here in the middle. That's your hint. I want you to look in the middle, and I want you to see what's different about adenine and thymine versus cytosine and guanine. There's a difference here between these two and these two. Let's see if you can spot it, if you can figure it out. I'm gonna give everyone a minute or two more. You are gonna have to get comfortable with a little bit of silence when you're dealing with Zoom, because you gotta give people time to type and people time to respond, and you may not be able to see or hear what they're doing while they're doing that. Okay, I see so far 3 people have got the right answer. Let's see if anyone else gets the right answer. And I can also respond independently to students and in that chat feature and respond to what they're saying without the rest of the class knowing. Okay, so I'm gonna bring it back to the class right now. And I'm going to say that the answer has something to do with right here. right here. Now, based off your responses, I can call on specific people that I want to give their answers based off what they wrote, or I could open it up to the whole group. So right now, I had some people ask about the bonds. Does it have to do with bonds? It absolutely has to do with bonds. So I am going to call on somebody. Let me go to my participant list. You can randomly call on students. You're going to have a small group, so you're probably going to call on the same students more than once. And this time I'm going to call on somebody I haven't called on yet, which is, I don't think I've called on Leo yet. So Leo, can you unmute your microphone and tell us what do you notice about the bonds? First of all, where are the bonds on this image?
Oh yeah, the bonds are in the middle, like the little dash lines right there.
Yeah,
Like
the little dash lines.
Yeah.
And did you notice something different about the adenine-thymine bonds versus the cytosine-guanine bonds?
Yeah, the adenine and thymine, they have 2 hydrogen bonds, and
Two bonds.
and the guanine and cytosine have 3.
They have 3. So why can't an adenine bond to a cytosine?
Wouldn't it be because of the bonds or the?
Absolutely, it would be because of the bonds, because adenine only has how many bonds?
2,
And how many does cytosine need?
3.
Perfect, that's exactly right. So that answers the why. So notice how there I had to use 2 different images. This one couldn't answer the why, so I needed another one. So just keep that in mind when you're designing your lesson, that that might be a requirement. All right, so there I used the private chat feature instead of the public one for students to answer their questions to me before I address the whole group. I want everyone to put it back to the public chat feature, so you can go back to everyone now. And my math people are probably like, Miss Goldberg, what about us? Where are math examples? Don't worry, I didn't forget about you. So here's a math example that I created using a website. Miss Mendiola can correct me if I'm mispronouncing this. Demos, it's like a graphing calculator website that's really cool, and she's going to be using it for her lessons, I believe. Is that correct,
Well,
Miss Mendiola?
they will be using it for their lessons.
Yes. Yes, and it is pretty cool. I like it. I tested it out the other day and I was like, this is awesome. So you can use, and I'll share the link with you in just a second later. Here would be a math example of using a visual. I have 3 lines, y equals x, y equals 2x, and y equals 4x. One of them is red, one of them is blue, one of them is green. In your chat feature, and I'm going to make a message to you so you can all see this, you are going to put the green line equals and then tell me which box, the blue equals and then tell me which box, and the red equals and tell me, not which box, which line, tell me which line it is. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of people think that green line is y equals x. Let's see if we can figure out what the red and the blue line is. Right, I'm seeing a lot of people saying the blue line is the y equals 2x, which therefore would make the red line equal to which one? Y equals 4x. All right, this time I'm going to open it up to the group. I'm not going to call on someone. I'm going to let someone volunteer. Who would like to share with us why you think the green line is y equals x, the blue line is y equals 2x, and the red line is y equals 4x?
You can just see it with rise over run.
Rise over run. Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by rise over run?
If you look at the points for the green one, you can see that it 2, 2 is a point and 0, 0 is a point. So there's a slope of 1.
So I'm going to try to draw kind of what you're explaining right here. So I'm going to pull up, there is an annotate feature and what you can do with the annotate feature is you can actually draw circles, lines, doodles, things of that nature. So right here, I've drawn a little circle. Oh, somebody else drew a circle too. Excellent. So you can do it, I can do it. So this is where you're talking about right here, correct?
Yeah, that's the 2, 2.
The 2, 2. And you're saying that's the rise and the run. So I want everyone else to grab out the annotate feature. So that's going to be next to the share and those things. And I want you to grab a little pen and I want you to show me where kind of the same thing. Was that Leo who was talking?
Eliasar.
Oh, Eliezer. I want you to show me this kind of the same thing that he was talking about on the blue and if you can, on the red.
How do we
The
do
same
that
thing that I
again, Ms.
was
Wilbur?
saying, or
Right, so where do you see the share button? There might also be, again, sometimes the host features are different than yours. So there would be an annotate button. And when you click
well,
the
I'm using
annotate
my
button, it will open up.
phone, and on there it's like a pencil.
It's like a
So it's
pencil.
like
Yeah, it's like a pencil and it says annotate.
Where I see it is in the top of my screen, says view options. And then there's an option that's called annotate. I just click on it and I have all the tools here. I don't know if everybody's seeing it the same way, though.
Yes, I'm seeing it at the top as well. Thank you.
Excellent. So you can grab that. You can draw your little circles. You could also have people put other shapes. You can also have them write text. All of those are features through the annotate. So you can have, yeah, Denisio just put a little arrow. Very nice, Denisio. Thank you for doing that. It actually labels that that is Denisio's arrow. So I like that even better. Why would you do that? Everyone put the arrows. That way I can see who's responding. And so that way, that's another feature that you can use via Zoom, is you can have the students sort of draw on the screen, annotate the screen. And so that way you can sort of see where they're talking about, where they're looking at. And you as the teacher can also do the same thing. Perfect. So I see we have some doodle circles, we have some freeform circles, we have some arrows, we have people writing their names. All of those things are available to you. Okay. All right, so you can also clear everything. So that way, you know, it doesn't clutter it up and stay on the screen, because it does stay on the screen. It's not key to the actual image, it's key to the screen. So you'll just want to keep that in mind. All right, so there would be a math example. So these are examples of just using images that you create, images that come off of Google, whatever the case may be. Another example that I want to use is manipulatives, and this is where I want you to pull up that PowerPoint. So if you haven't pulled up the PowerPoint yet, please do so. This is where I need it. And what you're going to do is, this is a manipulative that normally I would use with my students, where I would physically hand them these cards. But I can't physically hand you these cards. So what I did is I made some screenshots of them, and you can move them around. So if you have the PowerPoint, you can move those around and kind of shift them wherever you like. And so what I want you to do is pull up the PowerPoint, and I want you to sort the cards in any way that makes sense to you. Doesn't matter how you sort them, just sort them in some way. And I want you to do that with your PowerPoint. And then in just a little bit, I'm going to allow somebody else to share their screen, so that way they can show us how they sorted the cards. So I'll give everyone a few minutes. Pull up your PowerPoint and move the cards around on the PowerPoint itself. And then in just a little bit, we'll have somebody share their screen. Okay, when you're done, if you could just type done in the chat feature, so I know. Castillo, it says he's done. So for the sake of time, I'm gonna have him share. So I have to click stop share. So I'm gonna click stop share. That will free it up for somebody else to share their screen. So Jesus Castillo, can you please go to the share button and share your PowerPoint slide? It will give you different options. You can share a whiteboard, you can share your desktop, or you can share the PowerPoint slide. So I just want you to share the PowerPoint slide, please. Perfect. Ah, thank you, Jesus. And could you unmute your microphone and just tell us what you did there?
Well, first I organized by color because it was getting on my nerves that it was all messed up. And then I went by amounts of shaded in things from lowest to greatest.
From least to greatest. Excellent. Perfect. Just like that. Okay, Jesus, can you end your share screen, please? Perfect. All right. So that is a feature you can also have the students do, is that you can have them send them out documents ahead of time, have them work on them, and then they can share them. This can be worksheets, these can be manipulatives that you create, and then they can share their screen. You also have the option as the host to see other people's screens, so that way you can select who you want to show. And you also have the option when you're sharing screens to create a whiteboard. And so when you share the whiteboard, now I don't know if you can see everything that other students have on their screens, but you can definitely see the whiteboard. So right now, I just want to make sure everyone can see my whiteboard. And the whiteboard is pretty much identical to, let's say if you had a whiteboard, it has that annotate feature, and you can sort of write and doodle all over it, and your students can do the same, and you know they can fill in things or write text. And then you can share it, or your students can share it as well. Okay, let me see. All right, so I just wanted to share that that is an option as well. All right, let me go back to the PowerPoint slide. And this doesn't have to be a PowerPoint. You could literally have them share anything, a website, a worksheet. So again, if you're using that graphing calculator, they could share that as well. We're going to skip that second part because I want to show some more. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about demos. So maybe you want to show the students something. They don't physically have it in front of them. You are welcome to do demos. And we have sort of a couple options there. So with demos, you can show a pre-made video. So, you know, just like you would in class, you can show a pre-made video. So I have a pre-made video right here. So now I'm going to show, this is just, again, I'm showing my YouTube screen, and I can show the video. And just like you would do with in class, you can pause the video and talk and ask questions as it's running. You don't have to play it with the audio, but if you do, there is a feature that says use computer audio. So that way the students can hear what the video is saying as it's running. So here, if I'm showing this video about alkali metals, I could pause it and ask, okay, how reactive was the first metal? And then how reactive is the second metal? And then I could ask how reactive is the third metal going to be, which is pretty fun. I'm going to show that to you because it's just really cool looking. Zoom ahead a little bit to where they add the third metal. So again, just like you could show videos in your class, you can show videos here. The same functionality applies, and the students can see what you're looking at using the share screen. Yeah, there it goes. Woo, that's fun, right? That don't do at home. Don't do at home. Okay, so another thing you can do is you can create a video yourself. So if you want to, you can make a video, show that video to the students, pause it, talk about it, send it to them ahead of time so they can watch it. Things of that nature are also available to you as well. The last thing that you can do is you can demo in real time. Oh, and I forgot to grab sorry, I'm going to go back to sharing my PowerPoint. So for that, you actually wouldn't want to share on a PowerPoint or a screen like that. You would just want to go to your main screen where you have the image of yourself. And then I forgot to grab my food coloring, but I could say, hey, let's talk a little bit about diffusion. Here's a glass of water. I'm going to add a drop. I'm going to have some hot water, some cold water. Which one's going to diffuse the fastest? And then you could just bring it up to the camera and let the students see what's going on. So you also have that option too, where you don't have to share anything on your computer. You just share a picture, the video of you showing things to the camera. So that's always an option too. So feel free to demo. Feel free to demo just like you would in the classroom, with just the caveat that don't necessarily expect the students to have the same materials you do. Now, if it's something easy that they could have at their home, you can have them show their videos of something that they could have. So they could show you, everybody show me how many fingers you have. You know, show me, you know, a pencil, show me this, something that, show me something you drew, put it up to the screen. You also have that functionality as well. Okay, so the next one that I'm going to show you is, let me pull that up, simulations. So simulations you can run through Zoom as well. So this is for all those people who are like, hey, can I see that graphing calculators? Absolutely you can. So I'm going to click that right now. I'm going to click that link, and I'm going to show you that graphing calculator. I'm going to pull that up. I got a message here. So let me share my screen with you. So I'm going to share with you this graphing calculator. And actually, I'm going to share my desktop just so you can see how I sort of toggle between screens. because you can share anything on your desktop. So right now, is everyone seeing my desktop? Okay, so you can see it. So now I'm in this graphing calculator, and just like before, you can type things in and the students can see them in real time. And then you can manipulate them. You can have conversations about them. So it doesn't have to be a screenshot. I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can add another line. And Miss Mendiola will kind of walk you through this when you go over your lesson, but you can do absolutely all these things in real time with the students. So feel free to actually open up the software itself. It does not have to be still images. For my students who are, doing biology, the bio interactives are great. These are amazing. If you wanted to teach, say, a lesson on, say, viruses, they have some wonderful bio interactives on viruses, but also other things as well. So here's the Virus Explorer, and you can pull up these interactives, show them to the students, to share your screen, and it will show you different viruses, and you can kind of talk about them, manipulate them, move them around in real time. So I can ask questions about those. And then there's always the oldie but the goodie, which is the PhET simulations. PhET simulations have for math and science, and you can, again, run them in real time with your students, and you can also have your students run them independently and then, again, share their screen or ask them questions about what they notice. And again, you got for all the subject areas. So those will work beautifully through Zoom as well. Okay. All right. So the last thing is I just kind of want to recap some of the features we talked about and their functionality. So the first one is the chat. You can type questions to your students. So right now I can type a question and or type things to my students as I'm going through to ask them, and they can respond. You can have them respond just to you, or you can have them respond to the whole group. Another feature is the screen share that we talked about. I can show you my screen. They can show you their screen. You can show prepared materials. You can show what's on your desktop. You can annotate what's on the screen. They can annotate what's on the screen. You can also see their whiteboards and decide who you want to show. So that screen share option is available for you, and there's a lot of functionality there. You can unmute your students and let them talk. Let them talk to you, let them talk to each other. Let them answer in real time. It doesn't have to always be through the chat. And finally, one feature I didn't show to you today because I'm not the host and only the host can do this, but you can assign what's called breakout rooms. And what the breakout rooms is you can break people into smaller rooms so that they can talk to each other independently without the teacher listening in, without anyone else listening in, or you as the teacher can go between breakout rooms. And so I can spend a couple minutes talking to these 3 students, and then I can spend another couple minutes talking to those 3 students. And so that's also a feature that you'll have with the breakout rooms. And again, when I send you the PDF, because I can't show you because I'm not the host right now, but when I send you the PDF, it will show you how to do the breakout rooms. So when you do that, you probably won't need the breakout rooms when you teach your lesson because you're only going to be teaching to 3, 4, maybe 5 people. That's not enough really to justify the breakout rooms. But again, if you wanted just groups of 2, you could. But you could also just say, you know what, I'm going to mute my mic for a second and I'm going to just let you talk to each other. Talk to each other, come up with the answers, interact, and then I'll jump back in. And so you also have that feature. So don't think you have to have the students work completely independently. They can work together in a breakout room, or you can just let them talk to each other for a few minutes via Zoom. It's a small group, should work fine. And then you can have them kind of come together as a class. So that's another function that you can use. And by no means is this an exhaustive list, but this should give you at least some ideas of how you can still do inquiry, how you still can have the students answer the questions utilizing online learning, utilizing the features of Zoom.